That was the best clapping I've ever heard.
I know.
Wow.
We need to bring you back to Los Angeles with us.
Yeah. You guys are like the soundtrack on a TV show when there's the clapping.
Well, that was the idea, that you felt welcomed.
Yeah.
Well, we are privileged today to have these visitors with us. We have today Larry Laboe, co-founder and executive director of New Filmmakers, Los Angeles, an organization committed to highlighting and connecting emerging filmmakers and storytellers worldwide. And we also have the privilege to have J.K. Mathews, who is an award-winning entertainment journalist who has worked in the entertainment new industry for nearly 2 decades. So let's give them another round of applause. And I will give them the opportunity to introduce themselves, okay, more
Wonderful.
formally, and also tell us a little bit about how did you get into this, each one of the positions that you're actually in, and a little bit about yourselves.
Wonderful.
So,
Well, thank you guys for allowing me to come to your school. It's my first time in the Dominican Republic this week, and this is my first time obviously here in Santiago, so I'm really excited. Really, really excited. But as she said, my name is KJ Mathews, born and raised in Los Angeles, and I am an entertainment journalist. I love covering the entertainment industry, and currently, right now what I do is I do a lot of reports for international media outlets. You guys have probably heard of the BBC. I do stuff for Sky TV in the UK. I do something for a German outlet called DW English, and sometimes in Australia as well, ABC TV network there. So basically what I do is I cover film, television, and music for all of these outlets. So not just one thing, but a lot of different things. But film is part of what I cover. So I get to watch exciting films, I get to critique them, I get to review them, I get to interview filmmakers and people behind the scenes. It's really, really, really exciting to me. And like she said, I've been doing it for almost 2 decades, but I was just telling her before we walked in, I actually did not start covering entertainment, even though I'm from Los Angeles. I actually went to school for journalism because I thought I wanted to cover news and politics. I wanted to be like an anchor, which is called Barbara Walters in America. You know, she recently passed away, but I wanted to be very, very focused, very news oriented. And when I got into the business and I actually started doing that, I found that I hated it. I absolutely hated covering regular news, and my heart and my passion really has always been entertainment, and so I kind of made the segue over to that and got a wonderful job at CNN. So I worked at CNN for like a decade and just covering the entertainment industry in Hollywood, which is nice to be able to come back home because I worked in some smaller cities before I made my way back to Los Angeles. But yeah, I work for international outlets now. Really happy to be doing that. I know Larry, we're not just panelists, we're actually friends, and we worked in the business, we worked together before, so I was really excited when I found out I would be his wing woman. When I came here to talk to you guys, I thought this is great. We can really play off of each other and give them a lot of knowledge. But like I said, my knowledge about the film business is covering it, interviewing filmmakers, and interviewing a lot of people behind the scenes that have a hand in really making wonderful films. And I also cover film festivals and award shows and things of that sort. So hope that tells you a little bit about me.
Yeah, and we both are here in the Dominican Republic, but we didn't realize in Los Angeles that both of us were coming until
Right.
like 4 days ago. I was like, they were like, oh, you're gonna do this with KJ. I was like, KJ? I know KJ Mathews.
Right.
So yeah, I'm Larry. I'm super excited to be here and talk to you all. The organization is New Filmmakers LA that I co-founded. So I actually started that organization when I was not that much older, I think, than some of you. You guys are like, what, 14, 15?
Yeah.
16? 16, 17?
Give them
Okay.
their props. They don't
All
want to
right.
be called
Yeah.
14 when they're 16.
Yeah, right. No, they're like 17.
I know
17.
that. I remember that.
So I actually started this organization when I was 20. So just a few years older than some of you. But I grew up in a place in the United States called Michigan. Does anyone know where Michigan is? Okay, so it's very interesting for me because I think, you know, you guys are pretty close to Santo Domingo, and there's a lot of media industry there. There's a lot of television, there's a lot of film production, there's a lot of journalism. You guys have a lot of opportunities very close.
Really
Where
do.
I was in Michigan, we didn't really have a lot of opportunities to work in entertainment, but I always knew that entertainment was something that I loved. I love movies, I love TV shows, I love music. Obviously, I think all of you guys like that. Probably now, you also love like TikTok and like this other stuff too, YouTube. But I decided at 16 that I was gonna finish my 11th and 12th grade year of school in 6 months. I was gonna graduate 2 years early. So I did that. And then I moved to New York City by myself when I was 16 years old from Michigan, because Michigan didn't have the opportunities that I wanted in media, in entertainment. And so I started working as an actor when I was young, when I was 16. And then when I was 18, I moved to Los Angeles. I was kind of looking for something like New Filmmakers LA. I couldn't find anything, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna start my own organization. So New Filmmakers LA, there are for-profit companies and there are nonprofit companies in the United States. I'm pretty sure here you have nonprofit organizations as well. So New Filmmakers LA, I decided, okay, we're gonna make this a nonprofit organization. And the big difference with a for-profit company and a nonprofit company is, can the nonprofit make money? Can it pay its staff? Yes, it can make money, it can pay its staff, but who owns the nonprofit? Do I own it? I founded it, I'm the CEO, but I don't own the nonprofit. No one owns the nonprofit. So any money, if we have like a year where there's revenue above the expenses, that's called a reserve fund at the nonprofit, and that can be used to go through times of the nonprofit where maybe not as much money comes in to cover the expenses. But if I decided today I'm gonna leave the company and I'm gonna go do something else, I don't own any of the bank account assets, I don't own the name of the organization even though I came up with it and then I founded it. So with other businesses, you could, for example, take this brand that we've been building for almost 16 years now, and you could sell the brand,
Right.
You can make money from the company, you get to walk away with all the money that's in the bank, but we chose to make it a nonprofit because we knew the work that we were doing was really work that was gonna need to be supported by grants, be supported by corporate sponsorships from all kinds of companies and media, and we'll talk more about that. But in general, what we do is we work to highlight global emerging filmmakers. So this week in Santo Domingo, you have Cine Global Santo Domingo Film Festival happening. And they don't only promote filmmakers from here in the Dominican Republic, but the festival is also bringing together filmmakers from all over the world, from Asia, from Europe, from North America, from South America, from Central America, from the Caribbean, bringing filmmakers and film organizations from Jamaica, from Puerto Rico, from so many more.
Yeah, so many more. I'm trying to think of all the places. There are so many different nationalities that were represented. I was actually surprised because I've never come to Dominican Republic, and the person who invited me, I thought, oh, it'll probably just be more Caribbean filmmakers, and that's it, more of a regional thing. And I was quite surprised to see the number of nations that were represented. And all the people that I've been meeting, they're from like every corner of the world. So this really is a global international filmmaking festival, and really there's so many different representations in Santo Domingo. It's like an international city, it really is. And I thought it was smaller, but I've just been very impressed with the entire country, particularly Santo Domingo, for sure.
So this festival, the Santo Domingo Global Film Festival, in its mission and in its objective, it's very much like New Filmmakers LA. It's a nonprofit. It aims to bring together the community to support emerging artists and storytellers, to open up audiences to new parts of the world, to new people, to new backgrounds, to new things. I think that's one of the really amazing things that film and TV shows can do, is it can allow you to experience things outside of the things that you already know. But really, you know, a lot of the work that we do throughout the year and a lot of work that's going on at the festival, it's very much in arts and culture, it's in education, it's in workforce development. So we'll talk a little bit more about that stuff as we go through the slides, but yeah.
I think that's the crux of it.
Yeah.
We'll get started and get into it. Like I said, I'm so excited to share my knowledge with you guys, but that's kind of what we do, him from the filmmaking vantage point and me from the media vantage point, and how we really coexist. We need each other. You know, there can't be films without people promoting the films and people around the world knowing about the films, and that's kind of where we come in, is to be that voice and shine the spotlight on all sorts of filmmakers from around the world. Yeah.
So if you guys want to share now the video, or?
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you kind of got into your field? Like where one thing led to another?
Right. So let me go back a little bit. So as I told you, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I was in news first. So I grew up in Los Angeles, but my family is really from a state called Louisiana and Arkansas. You guys have probably heard of that. So they're very, very southern. But I always grew up in Los Angeles knowing that I loved entertainment, but not really being able to admit it. Because I came from an environment, we didn't have a lot of money. There were more blue collar workers, and we work, and we didn't dream a lot. You know, it was more like just getting work done and making sure you could pay for stuff. So I always had that fascination with entertainment and wanting to do something with it, but I wasn't quite sure. So as I got older, I was able to get into the college UCLA undergrad. And then after graduating from UCLA, I thought I wanted to be a writer or a journalist of some sort. And like I said, I really thought I wanted to do news, just because I grew up watching all these anchors covering news. And I said, that's where I am. I think I have a pretty decent voice. Maybe I can get out there and be an anchor or whatnot. So I decided to move to New York. I actually lived in New York a little bit too, where I went to graduate school for journalism. So I actually went to school for journalism in New York for like 2 years after I left UCLA. And I got there, and New York was a huge culture shock for me, because I really had only lived in LA, and it was just so different, but I did finish it. Then I got my very first job at a CBS TV station in San Diego, actually, where I was covering, like I said, city council meetings, politics, crime, all that stuff, as a producer. And I wasn't too bad. I kind of liked it when I was doing the producer standpoint. So I decided I wanted to go to the next level and be in front of the camera as a journalist, reporter, and anchor. And the way it works in Los Angeles in the media, if you want to be a big media person like an anchor, and you know that you want to go to a big city like a Miami or New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco, in order to get to that level, it used to be you had to start at a very small level. So you would never just get out of school and say, I want to be an anchor, or I want to be a reporter, so I'm going to go to Miami. It doesn't work like that. You have to go to smaller cities and get that experience so that you can move up the ladder to the bigger city. That's just the way it works, especially in America. So I went to a smaller city in actually Kentucky and Alabama to really learn the art of like just, you know, being a news reporter. How do you get your facts straight? How do you get sources? How do you interact with people? So I went there and I did that for a couple of years. And that's where I kind of had the eye-popping moment where I said, you know what? I've been doing this for a couple of years. I don't really like this anymore. I don't really like to cover crime and news. And guess what? I can't see myself doing this for like the rest of my life. It's just, it's not me. So I had to admit that to myself. And I'll tell you this, just as an older person than you guys, sometimes you will think you want to cover something, you will think you want to pursue something, you will like something today, and it's okay to pursue it, and then maybe a couple years later or somewhere down the line, you decide you don't want to do that anymore. That's just part of life. That's part of learning. And so don't ever beat yourself up and think that you have to know right now exactly where you want to be and what you want to do with your life. Your life will change. Your desires will change. Your passions will change. So that's okay, just to know that. For someone like me, because I was beating myself up for so long that, why did I change? I really thought I wanted to do this, and I didn't. I realized that my heart was really in entertainment. I decided to be honest and just move back to LA and try to pursue that. And that's when I got a job at CNN as an entertainment journalist, and I was there for like a decade and just absolutely loved it. But I will say this, it was a little hard moving from news in a small market where I was covering just, crime and stuff like that, all the way back to Los Angeles to cover the entertainment industry. It took me a while. I would say I was probably, when I made that switch, I probably was out of work for like a little under a year, because it was hard. People in LA, sometimes you really have to be there to do certain stuff. And also, they want to make sure that you know what you're covering. If you've never done that before, it can be hard, as with any job. But you just keep at it and you're persistent and something will come through. And that's kind of what happened for me. And it just took off from there. Once I got into entertainment and I started working at CNN, I was like, this is exactly where I should have been all along. You know how you just get into something and it just clicks? It clicked with me. And I said, this is what I should have been doing. I loved it from the beginning. I love covering filmmaking and films and television and music. I just loved it all. I never, even if I was tired, it was like I was never tired or hated the job. I always loved the job and I was always passionate about it. And so I was so happy that I had the guts to admit to myself that I didn't want to cover news, get out of it, and do an about face and go in another direction, because it really, really paid off for me. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
I love it.
Yeah.
Mine is a very similar story.
Oh, okay.
But it was always in entertainment. But it was figuring out what in entertainment I actually wanted to do. And for me, it was the reverse of the start. So
really,
you went from being in a big city to a small city.
Yes.
I went from being in a small city in the middle of nowhere to being in a big city.
But see, that's lucky for you. It's easy. I'm going to tell you, Larry, I think it's actually easier. And I'll tell you why. Because when you're in a small city, there's a lack of resources.
Yeah.
So when you move up and you have all these opportunities, it's wonderful. You have all the things that you never had. But if you start big and you have all these resources and all these opportunities, and then they get taken away from you and you go to a smaller city, sometimes it can be harder to adjust. That's just my opinion.
Interesting. So for me, like I said, I moved to New York when I was 16 years old. The age that I think a lot of you are either 16 or around 16. So I moved to the biggest city in the United States by myself, alone. And I knew I wanted to work in entertainment. So I did the one thing that I could do when I was your age, and that was acting. I could get a job acting. I was doing things I never knew.
Wow.
You see these things in the media, but you don't understand how it all works, right? So my agent's like, you're gonna go on a print audition. And I was like, what's a print audition? A go-see, for like a print ad in like a magazine or like on a billboard, right? And that's like still photography. Mm-hmm. Catalogs, like shopping magazines and things like that. And so I started going on those through my agent and like, boom, okay, you booked this. You're gonna make 50,000 pesos today. Okay, oh, cool, 50,000 pesos for the day, that's great. And then the next, week, oh, you're gonna go on a voiceover audition.
You were doing it all.
What's a voiceover audition? Oh, it's like for the radio or for TV where there's like a voice. Okay, I've never done that before. Oh, you booked it. You're gonna get 60,000 pesos for this one day of work. And I'd go in to do the day of work for like a voiceover, and I would be in there for like 1 hour. That's it, And I was like, this is great. I don't even have to be in front of a camera. I'm not even nervous. Like, it's just a microphone. And then I started going on real commercials, like video commercials for everything you could imagine that someone would do at that age. Cell phone commercials for T-Mobile.
Yeah, that was hot back then.
Back then it was Singular Wireless, I think.
Singular Wireless was big in America.
Print ads for Radio Shack, commercials for like
oh my God.
Toys.
Radio Shack, you're bringing me back. I forgot all about Radio Shack.
Yeah. Print campaigns for Journeys, the shoe store, all this kind of stuff. And it was great for me because even though acting wasn't what I wanted to do, it exposed me in such an important way to the business of entertainment, right? Because now, here I am as someone that has to go, and I have to go on this audition, right? In front of this casting director who's choosing sort of what talent they want to put to the person who's in charge at the company that's going to book that talent. Then I'm getting to go, when I book the job, onto a set, right? So now there's a camera and a camera person. There's the makeup person putting makeup on me. There's wardrobe. Oh, let's try this shirt. Let's see how you look in this shirt. There's the sound person who's miking me and hiding the microphone. So during all these days where I got to go on set for commercials or print ads or voiceovers, I got to learn about sound recording because I was this 16-year-old kid who was like, what do you do? What's your job? Like, can I like hang out with you and eat lunch with you and learn about what you're doing? And I think like a big part of that at your age is kind of like what KJ said, exploring what you might like to do by doing it and then figuring out what you don't like. I had the luxury to do that without knowing that I was doing that.
Right.
Like
you were ahead of your time, Larry.
I didn't know that I was doing that. Like essentially all the things that I would have had to go to college for, I was learning as I was like doing it in real life. So then at 18 years old, I didn't want to be in the cold anymore. New York can be cold in the winter. A lot of like snow and wind. And I was like, I need to move to LA. There's more entertainment industry in LA and it's warm all year, like here. So I moved to LA. When I lived in New York, I was always a very curious person to meet more people, to learn more about the entertainment industry. So I did what you guys can do this week, which is I went to film festivals, like the festival here. And I started to go to the Havana Film Festival, which is a Cuban film festival in New York. And I started to go to the Gen Art Film Festival in New York, and the New York Film Festival in New York, and the Tribeca Film Festival in New York. And I was like, this is great. Like, I get to meet people, I get to learn stuff, I get to see films I never would have seen and learn about stuff through those films, whether it was like, oh wow, I learned about Sigur Rós, the Icelandic band, because their music was featured in this film. Or oh, I learned about like this indigenous tribe in Brazil through this documentary. Like just really cool stuff that for me felt like, it's almost like if you guys go to like a new neighborhood or like you go like on vacation and you're like, let's say you go to Paris and you're like, whoa, Paris feels like very exotic to me or very new. Or like, I feel like I'm in this place, this magic place that I've never been in before that I didn't know existed. That's all the time what I feel like when I get to watch like a documentary or a film where it's like, whoa, this feels brand new to me. So when I moved to LA, I was trying to find something throughout the year round, that felt like that film festival space. And I couldn't find one. So at 20, that's when I started this organization, New Filmmakers LA. I also decided between 18 and 20 that I didn't want to be an actor as like a long-term job. Like it worked for me to make money right away, but I figured out, like you figured out, that's not my passion and I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. So then I started working as a producer. So in producing, I had to, do you guys know actors like James Franco, Joseph Gordon-Levitt? So I then, as a producer, was casting these people in my projects, getting them and their agents and their managers to say, yes, okay, my client will work with you on this project. So I did producing all the way from about 19 until I was 28, while I simultaneously was building this nonprofit. Because when I was building this nonprofit for like the first 5 years, guess how much I got paid? Zero. Zero. It was what in business you would call sweat equity, right? Except remember my sweat equity, the sweat is like your hard work you're sweating. Maybe a little bit of blood and tears in there too, because it was a lot of work. But in business you would call sweat equity the work you put in, which you will get paid for later. So I won't get paid in that way later because I don't own the company, but I built something that I'm really proud of. And now there's a foundation that's been laid within the organization for the work to continue happening and for everybody who works at the organization to continue getting paid. So the slide that's up now, these are some of our alumni. So I think you guys maybe know the movie Hereditary. Midsommar.
She's like, yeah.
So Ari, who's there, he was one of the very first filmmakers we had.
Can just switch the slide?
Okay. He was one of the very first filmmakers who we promoted his very first short film. Emmanuel went on to make an Amazon film. I think you guys know like Disney, Freeform, ABC. Din Tai has a TV show now. But really exciting on this slide is Gabriella. So she's from here. She's from the Dominican Republic. Yeah, so she played her very first short film with New Filmmakers LA. Do you guys know the Oscars? Yes. So we do 2 events a year with the Academy Awards. KJ, that's how we met. KJ hosted as a moderator one of those events, interviewing the filmmakers for our audience. Yeah. And Gabriella was part of one of those programs in 2020 with her film called Poppy. So does anyone know like a small company, it's really small, called HBO? Yeah. So Gabriella, that film Poppy in 2020, a short film, not only is she from the Dominican Republic, but she was living in Los Angeles. She came back to the Dominican Republic to visit her father. And she decided, you know what? I love my island. And my father's so crazy and fascinating. I'm going to spend this trip with him visiting home. And I'm going to make a documentary about the island and my father. And my experience of the island through my father growing up. So she made this documentary, which is journalism, right?
Right.
And we played it, and HBO bought the short documentary. So you can watch Poppy on HBO. P-A-P-I. Well, you guys know how to spell Poppy. So that was her first film, okay? Then she made another film in 2021, which we premiered in September of 2021. Do you guys know a small festival called Sundance? Has anyone heard of Sundance Film Festival? It's like the biggest, most important film festival in the United States. So we, at New Filmmakers LA, premiered Huella, H-U-E-L-L-A, you guys know how to spell Huella. We premiered that in September 2021. It went on to play at Sundance in January of 2022. Yeah. And she got a grant through our organization for the feature version of that film. And she's directed a Disney Plus film just now. So this is like the talent that we see coming out of places all over the world. So know that like we definitely see a lot of talent coming from the Dominican Republic. And we had another filmmaker who came yesterday to the festival. He played in our festival last year. So these are some of our filmmakers. And then this is kind of like what one of our festivals looks like in terms of programming. So we'll have 3 programs each month. This happens every month. And we bring in different industry professionals from all different backgrounds in both the creative of entertainment and the business of entertainment, right? Because maybe some of you are interested in entertainment, but maybe not all of you want to be an actor or a writer or a director or a cinematographer or a makeup artist or a costume designer or a lighting person. Maybe some of you are like, well, actually I'm interested in being a lawyer or an accountant or a business executive. All those jobs exist in entertainment and they're all important for the content, right? Like without marketing, you don't have a way to get people to come watch a movie or to watch a television network to watch a show. Without a lawyer, you can't really be protected as a content creator when you're selling your content to a studio. Without studio executives, who's going to run the business of the studio, right? So no matter
with accountants too, when you think about it, I was going to add to what you were saying, just accountants play a really big role in terms of getting a budget because no matter how phenomenal your script or your film is, you still need a budget. You need money to get it made, to put it out to the masses. So it's extremely important that we have really good people in that role too. I think it's even more important almost than the filmmaking part, because you have to have somebody to fund your dream to get it out there. So there's so many different roles you can play when it comes to getting that film out there.
Yeah, and I understand like a lot of you are interested in business. So I want you to know that there is entertainment, the creative side, and there is entertainment, the business side. And any job you could be interested creatively or in business exists within entertainment. Even someone here from the school, the coordinator, where is she? She does IT, right? Her background is in engineering and IT. And even these jobs exist in entertainment, you know? So
yeah, it's the show business part. Remember, there's the show, which is the entertainment creative side, and there's the biz. Show biz is the business. So
yeah. So these are some of the executives and media professionals that we have brought in to support the filmmakers every month at our festival. And you'll see here, there's another Dominican native professional, Sandra Condito. So Sandra was the vice president of Sony Pictures International, which is all of Sony Pictures International productions. Do you guys know an actor named Eva Longoria? Yes. So Sandra from the Dominican Republic is the president of Eva Longoria's company in LA. So she's actually giving Gabriella work as well through our organization. This is a video, so I think for this one I just click the button that's play, right? So you guys can see what does a film festival look like at our organization. This is a quick video. Okay. Oh yeah, I think I messed it up. Okay. He knows what he's doing.
He's got it all set up out there.
IT.
Yeah.
You did this with us.
I think I did.
Yeah.
I was looking.
Well, this is the last year.
Oh, okay, last year. Yeah, but I loved it though.
Yeah. So we have 45 minutes? Okay. Promoting alcohol at their school now in the next shot. Oh God.
I'm like, that's taking me back. I'm getting hungry just looking at that Mexican food.
I don't know what the drinking age is here.
I know, it's always different in each country.
Melina. She did your ear too.
Oh, she did?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So that's what I do in a nutshell. And KJ, you want to talk about how you work with festivals?
So the way I come in and sometimes work with festivals and all sorts of organizations really is that I often act as their mouthpiece. I'll come in and sometimes interview a filmmaker that's part of a film festival. I did that in Cannes recently where I had 3 filmmakers and they were so excited. They were all debuting their very first film at Cannes Film Festival. They've been filmmakers for a while, but they never were able to get a film into the Cannes Film Festival, which is really the #1 film festival in the world, Cannes, France.
Do you guys know? Yeah, I was gonna say.
You probably have heard of Cannes Film Festival. Yeah, so this past year, I would be back in May of 2022. I did a panel in coordination with the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which is owned by the Golden Globes Association. So I'm also, just to let you know, a member of the Golden Globes. You probably have heard about the Golden Globe Awards. So there are 100 journalists that vote on those awards. I'm one of them. So when you see the Golden Globes being announced, I'm one of the people that voted for the winners. So I'm part of that organization, really proud. I've only been part of that organization for about 2 years, but just last year I was in Cannes with the group and was able to interview filmmakers. I did somebody from Ukraine, Algeria, and then India. And all 3 of them had films that were debuting in Cannes, and it was just really wonderful to be able to speak to them. But that's a lot of what I do, is making sure that these filmmakers get their message out to the world and just kind of talk about their films and how they got in filmmaking and why they're making it. Because like I said, a lot of these filmmakers, you start off, before you become a Spike Lee or Steven Spielberg or any of the other major players in Hollywood, you have to start small. And it's very hard sometimes to get the press to cover your small little independent regional film. And that's where we come in, the media. We come into play and we talk to the filmmakers, we interview the filmmakers, we put them on TV, we put them on radio, and we allow them to talk about their art making process when it comes to filmmaking, but also what their film is about, why they wanted to get into filmmaking, where people could see it. Without it, it would be really hard for small little independent filmmakers to get out there and do it. And so I love being part of that with the media. And then as you move up, of course, if you become a bigger filmmaker, you still need the media. You just need bigger media outlets. Maybe you won't be doing small radio shows, you may be doing something like a CNN or a BBC, where you're on set live discussing your film or whatnot. But filmmakers need us, and look, we need filmmakers. Who will we cover? If we weren't covering the filmmakers and the television writers or whatnot, what would we be covering? That's all I do is cover that in the entertainment world. So I love attending these film festivals. Last year I went to the Venice Film Festival in Venice, Italy, and then I went to Martha's Vineyard Film Festival. You guys probably haven't heard of that, but it's a little small island off of the state of Massachusetts, and they had their 20th year, and that film festival focuses on the African American experience. So it's called the Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival, but it was my first time attending, and I loved it. They opened the film festival with Barack Obama. So like, he comes out and you're like, oh my God, you didn't expect him to, because he didn't really confirm that he was coming, but he just decided to be there for their 20th anniversary, and he opened up the film festival, so it's getting bigger and bigger. But there's so many great film festivals around the world. That one, like I said, focuses on the African American experience with African American actors and filmmakers and whatnot. But I love going to all sorts of stuff, where you get a flavor of like the regional kind of filmmaking process and cultures. I just love that, to learn a lot more, because sometimes you can kind of be in a bubble in Los Angeles and you're getting kind of like this mass production of what's being put out. It's a little bit too commercial. So it's nice to be able to leave LA and go to places around the world and see what filmmaking is like outside of our bubble. So it's one of the reasons why I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's very much an ecosystem, entertainment. And so when you have an organization, a nonprofit, we can only do good work if we have partners. We have to be partners with the media. We have to be partners with industry professionals. We have to be partners with the very established commercial side of our industry, right? So, the companies like NBC Universal and Disney and Warner Brothers and Netflix and Amazon and Hulu. It's very important for us to have all of those kinds of relationships, because we can't really help a filmmaker progress professionally unless we have those kinds of partnerships so that they have access to the right people, whether it be media
Right.
or, content
That's where his
professionals.
organization works so well with bringing people like me into the fold and, helping me learn about these great filmmakers. You guys always have. You find the best. You guys always find the best talent and stuff. And then we're aware of it as a media, as a journalist, and then we can promote it. But we have to be made aware of it because we don't see everything. There are so many films that come out every single year from all around the world, and we can only see so many. We try to see as many as we can as journalists and write and report on it, but it's wonderful to have these festivals and organizations like his that can kind of say, push us in another direction to see talent that we may not have even heard of.
But it's interesting too because, maybe not all of you are interested in a career in entertainment. Maybe some of you are like, I want to launch my own shoe line, or I want to start a makeup company, or different kinds of business or pursuits in your life. The power of media, though, to promote and help get your message out, regardless of what it is that you want to do, what field that you want to enter. Maybe you want to enter academia, right? Just last night, I was watching CNN.
Oh, CNN International.
Yeah, and they brought in for AI. They brought in a professor from.
Was it UCLA?
No, Tisch. NYU. They brought in a professor from NYU to speak in media about this subject of AI, right? Which is part of what he teaches at NYU, which is not really, it's technology related. It's not really related to media, but you see how even as an academic professional, media is very important to him as a professor because it shows that he's an expert in his field, right? Now, instead of being known at this local level as this professor, he's really upped his value as a nationwide voice and expert on this topic, on this field. And if he were selling something other than himself, let's say it was clothing or shoes or makeup or even food, right? Like to get your brand's message out, whether that brand is you or your company, through media.
Yeah, but one thing I want to add, you guys are lucky because when I first got in the business, I didn't have one thing that you guys have that we didn't have, I think, when we were growing up. Social media.
The internet. The internet.
There was no TikTok. There was no Twitter. I would have loved that there was an Instagram because I'm crazy about Instagram now, but we didn't have Instagram. You guys have all that. You even have YouTube. I don't even think, maybe there was a YouTube around, but I wasn't doing anything on it. I didn't even know how to work it or anything. I mean, now we all do, it's just kind of a rite of passage, but you guys have a way of putting your art out there and connecting. A lot of the times, like us in the media, we find people by going on TikTok. We will find people by going on YouTube. We'll find filmmakers sometimes if they have a great site with a lot of following and they're making creative, great content on TikTok or YouTube. We will say, well, let's interview this person and find out what their deal is. What's their background? Why are they doing what they're doing? Why are they focusing on this aspect of life or whatnot? So, that's one way to get your message out to the media or to get on the radar of media outlets, because so many of them, I think one of our local stations, Fox Station in Los Angeles, they have a segment called TikTok Tuesday. TikTok Tuesday, and every Tuesday they introduce us to somebody we probably haven't heard of, but they just are doing interesting, creative things on TikTok, and their brand is growing. They had a DJ on the other day. I was like, who is this guy? But he knows how to mix music in a way that I've never heard of before. I think he's from Mexico, but he moved to America, and anyway, he just has a great story. So he was on the TikTok Tuesday segment, and don't you know all the other outlets were watching. Soon enough, a week later, CNN had him on. So they were watching the local station, they saw him, and then they pulled him on. But here it was, this guy doing stuff on TikTok, and then he gets on the radar of the local station, so they have him on, and then CNN sees him and says, we want it. So that's how it works. But you guys got this wonderful, like you said, ecosystem where the social media is just brilliant. You know what I mean? And you don't need to have money. It doesn't matter where you live in the world. Everybody has access to the things I just talked about in terms of social media with TikTok and Instagram and, of course, Facebook and YouTube. You can just put it out there and start developing your niche and whatever it is you're interested in. And people will see it, especially if you're passionate. If you're passionate about it and it's something you really love, it'll take heat. It'll pick up fire. You'll start gaining followers and subscribers. Before you know it, you'll become a viral hit. You might even have to sign autographs for your colleagues here once you get a following or whatnot. But that's a good way to get your message out there and your interest to the media while you're young, while you're here.
You're gonna make fun of me.
What?
I don't have social media. Like,
Shut
I don't have
up,
any.
I don't
have any.
How do you not have?
I know. I'm like the.
Do you have one of those phones that still has a cord?
I think so. I
You
got the
pick
flip
it up
phone.
and you talk and flip. Oh my God.
No, I don't have social media, but our company has social media.
Okay.
But I don't personally have social media. I don't like. So I am. All right. Let me state something.
Yeah, because these are probably. Well, let me just say something. Raise your hand if you have Instagram. I want to see who has it. Okay, you have Instagram. Okay, great. Okay, hands down. Let me ask this. Who has TikTok here? Wow, even more. Okay. Does anybody have a YouTube account? A little bit less. Okay. And then, what about Facebook? Yeah. Okay. You're old school, dude. You're old school. And then, lastly, Twitter. Is anybody even on Twitter? Okay,
Yeah,
more
we're
so
still on Twitter. Okay.
But you know what? Less of them are on Facebook, and that's not surprising because a lot of people say that
It's
Facebook
clunky.
is more for the older crowd to connect with their family, and then your generation is more TikTok and Instagram. Am I right? And I'm sorry, I forgot. Do you guys even do Snapchat? Wow, you guys still doing Snapchat? I literally thought that Instagram and TikTok would kill Snapchat, but I see that's not the case with you guys.
Well, yeah.
But you guys are all on. So see, they're social media savvy.
Yeah,
This is the generation.
Yeah.
Snapchat kind of copied.
Yes, that's why I thought.
Instagram copied Snapchat.
Right. There you go. You are absolutely right about. She knows she's up on game. She gets it. But that's probably what you guys do every day. Like, I'm sure there's nobody here that goes a day without looking at their social media or posting
A
their social media.
day? You mean an hour?
Yeah, like this generation. So you're putting content, to be honest with you, you guys are already artists. You're already putting content out there of yourself, whether it's, this is what I ate for lunch, or these are the new shoes I bought, or my family and I, we cook for, Christmas, this is what we're eating.
Telling a story.
You're storytelling already. So you have all that at your advantage. You don't have to move anywhere to show us. Yeah. Right. Well, they love that.
But
They love
I
it.
do want to say something on that. The reason I brought up that I don't have social media is because I feel like you really tied in curiosity, the idea of curiosity to social media. And for me, like learning, for me, in school, it was always very difficult. I had a really tough time paying attention unless I was engaged. If I wasn't engaged directly, if I wasn't part of the conversation, if I couldn't stop and participate in some way, I'd be like, wait, slow down, hold on. So what happened? Like, I needed to.
That's very typical, though, with a lot of artists. To be honest with you, in Hollywood, what you're going through, a lot of people who get into our industry will say that they didn't like school. But if it was a topic they loved, they were passionate about. If it was a topic that you didn't understand or that you didn't like at all, your interest level waned.
But that's why curiosity for me is very important. And like, I know you were tying a lot of like the idea of exploration into social media. For me, like, curiosity has been the biggest part of every single thing I've done in my life, whether it was that pursuit of moving to New York to figure out curiosity back in the day, MapQuest, figuring out how do I get from here to here on my own, like figuring out what are the parts of the city that are okay for me to live in, like figuring out how do I get an agent, what is an agent, who are they, where's their office, I'm just gonna go show up.
What we call in the day, you're nosy, like we're both nosy.
Nosy. But like curiosity, honestly, like if the doctor gives me a medicine, I'm like, I want to Google it, I want to know what's in it, I need to know the interaction, like I am a curious person. I'm like,
same way.
Wait, what does she do? Hold on, what's her background?
That's why I got into journalism.
Nosy maybe, but curious. Like, curiosity is so important. Like, if you're just this person who goes through life and you're like, like you can learn so much every single day just being curious, and all that translates to success.
Good storytelling.
Yeah.
Right. Got to be curious about people who are not like you and things outside of your little sphere to want to be a good storyteller. But curiosity starts it all. That's where you start. And I can tell you guys are curious. You're already on social media, and I bet you scroll through everybody else's accounts all the time, so you know they're curious. For sure, for sure.
We have 30 minutes.
Yeah,
so-
I'd love to open it up and let them talk to us and ask whatever questions of us that you like. We're here to help. And
You guys get to grill us. You
Yeah.
guys get to ask us the
ask
tough
us questions. We're all full of answers.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been great to know a little bit, I like both of you.
Yeah.
And I think that you guys have a very clear idea about what and how passionate you both feel about what you do.
Right.
Which actually is something that we always talk to them about, be passionate about whatever you decide to do in life. So that was great to see how passionate you both are about what your job is about. So we have some questions that came from students. So we have Maria Jose and Maria Olga. I am going to ask them to move closer to you.
Oh, great.
So they already came up with a few questions.
Wonderful.
I know that maybe some of the questions have already been answered
Okay.
in your talk, so we're gonna take the opportunity to come up with those few questions they have.
Okay.
Okay, well, hi, it's really nice to meet you.
Thank you for having us.
The first question I have is, how has your experience been in the Dominican Republic so far? Have you liked the country?
You know, I do like the country, and I'm almost sad that it took me this long to come here. I have been to the Caribbean many times. I think I've been to like 18 different Caribbean territories or countries, and never the Dominican Republic. And you know what else is interesting? Because I grew up in Los Angeles, I was surrounded by a lot of Mexican, Spanish-speaking residents there. And so I've grown up around the culture, but then I also realize now that I'm here, that we were talking about this on the way here, every Spanish-speaking country is different. It's like saying, is LA like Iowa? Is Iowa like San Diego? No. We're all the United States, but it couldn't be more different. So I'm learning that now that I'm here in the Dominican Republic, and I'm seeing the culture and how it's very different, and it's just been a wonderful experience. I know I'll come back. I just know I'll come back, but I really love the culture, love the food, love the people, and I just love what you guys are doing here. I'm seeing that you guys are building a lot. That's another thing too that surprised me. I'm right next to a hotel, and it's like they're building here, they're building down the street. You guys are just building, 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 which is excellent for the economy. So, all great experiences so far for me.
Well, we're glad to hear that. Mr. Laboe, I have a question for you. So I was kind of interested in the way you say it's a nonprofit organization, and I was wondering, how do you manage to sustain yourself and to sustain your company as a nonprofit organization?
Yeah, so I have to be responsible for myself plus 4 other people that all need to get paid a salary and health insurance and pay for all of our expenses and manage all of the programs that we're doing and all of our partnerships. So I think the answer is just hard work. A lot of hours, a lot of time, a lot of planning, and making sure that we're always trying to cultivate our relationships. The biggest part of my job now, from when I started, it was much more focused on our programs and our programming. And now that we have a team of 5 people, my job is a lot of it is taking care of the organization and the 5 people. So, you know, I think we have like probably 50 different organizations and companies that help to subsidize all the cost of what we do. So Golden Globes gives us a grant every year. The Oscars gives us a grant every year. Warner Brothers Discovery gives us a grant. Sony Pictures gives us a grant. But also we get government funding as well, but we have to apply. So we have to do a grant application. So we get money from the city of Los Angeles, from the county of Los Angeles, from the state of California, and from the federal government, which is the National Endowment for the Arts. So we get from those kind of government institutions, we get from private foundations like the Hollywood Foreign Press Association or the Bridges Larson Foundation or the Parencio Foundation or the California Community Foundation, and then we get what's called corporate sponsorship. And that corporate sponsorship would be like that Warner Brothers or Sony or Netflix or these kind of companies, Coca-Cola,
Right.
things like that. But every single one of those, what's important to know is even though we're applying to the grant at the Golden Globes or the grant at the LA City Department of Cultural Affairs or LA County or the California Arts Council, each one of those is a relationship as well. And you have to maintain those relationships throughout the year and also engage that funder, not so they feel like they're participating, but just so they're aware even of what you're doing. Luckily with organizations like HFPA,
Right.
Hollywood Foreign Press that does the Golden Globes, they're the perfect fit as both a funder and someone to engage because people like KJ, you know, people like Sylvia, people
Right.
like Anna Maria Bahiana, people like Gabriel Lerman, they
Right.
can come in as journalists and moderate our film programs, which for us it's, okay, we're getting funding from them, but also this is the perfect organization to get funding from to engage with because their journalists can come in and amplify
Right.
what's going. The reason I'm here in the Dominican Republic is from Ruben.
Right, Ruben. He's a member of our Golden Globes organization. And also, too, I was just want to say, the Golden Globes organization, which is called Hollywood Foreign Press Association, we have a grant committee. And last year, I'm trying to think, I think we gave out...
$6 million.
Around $6 million, but we gave out to like 20 different organizations. So there are many organizations that we help fund, and we just give millions of dollars to each year because we want them to have access to the arts. We want filmmakers to be able to make films. If you're acting, we want you to be able to do that too. So we fund organizations like his every single year, millions of dollars.
And $6 million is how many pesos? Like 300 million pesos?
Well, a dollar is 50, 60.
It's about 250 million, right? Five?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's how much we're
250
giving out.
million pesos they gave to nonprofits.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
You know.
Well, going in that same topic about budget and how can the budget affect a film production? Like, has low budget ever been an issue for you?
So okay, it's really the same because my job before this job, after the acting, was producing. So literally, I was running a company. It was a production company, and I was the producer, right? But we were making content. And we had a set amount of money. We had, let's say it was $1 million, okay? And our actor, James Franco, is costing us $200,000.
Right.
20% of the budget is gone, okay? And then you have to create a budget, and you have to stick to it. And some things in a budget are out of your control, right? So let's say part of our budget is vehicles to transport the actors, to transport the equipment, and the location. We need to rent a school to film in the school. But oh no, like this window got broken and the truck crashed into the gate in the front on accident. So now we have to pay for the truck repairs, we have to pay for the damage to the window. Let's say we start getting behind schedule on the production. And remember, it's $1 million, okay? Let's say that $1 million was scheduled to be a 10-day shoot. About 500,000 of that was specifically earmarked for those 10 days of production based on the crew, the cost of the crew for 10 days. So if it's 500,000 for those 10 days and you end up needing one more day because you got behind, you better come up with $50,000 more, 5% of your budget more. Yeah. So you have to, it's not just about obtaining your funding, you have to manage that funding. And in the case of a production, that means managing that production. In the case of a nonprofit, it means managing those programs. If those programs are not well managed, not only will things go wrong that will cost you money you don't have, but things will go wrong where your funders, where your Coca-Cola or your Hollywood Foreign Press Association, Golden Globes will say, we don't want to be associated with that organization. They don't do a good job. Or even worse, your filmmakers who you're trying to promote will be like, that was a disaster. I don't want anything to do with that festival ever again. And we see it happen all the time with other festivals. And I see it happen all the time with productions, where productions do not plan properly or there's poor planning. and they go way over budget. The film never gets finished. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and just I wanted to add to that too. There's also budgets for media. Like when we cover film festivals, there has to be a budget for that. You don't just get up and go cover a film festival that costs thousands and thousands of dollars. So many media outlets that have entertainment journalists or film critics, they set aside a budget each year. And I'll tell you another thing. Oftentimes when they don't have a big budget, they have to look at all the film festivals happening around the world and say, what's important? Which ones should we go to? Which ones do we think will get more bang for our buck in terms of getting as many filmmakers as possible? So we too, as journalists and media outlets, have budgets every year. You know, when I worked at CNN, because it's a news organization, they had an entertainment department, but our budget was much smaller than like an Anderson Cooper news budget. So we had to work within our parameters and say, okay, this is a small budget we have. What are the most important film festivals around the world to go to? What are the most important entertainment events happening yearly where we should put our budget? So even us, even though we're not making films, we're covering them, and we have a budget to adhere to too. And sometimes, depending on how things go, especially when it comes to ratings, and you guys probably don't know a lot about that, but basically when you watch TV, there's, I don't know how it works in this country, but we have something called Nielsen ratings in America, and it can watch like how many people are actually watching a certain show. Obviously, the higher number of people watching a certain show, the more money that media outlet will make because they can charge more for commercials. The less people watching that show, the less they'll be able to charge for commercials. That means you'll get less money for a budget. So it's all connected, that ecosystem.
But even like the idea, right? Like of you, let's say they said, okay, you can go to the Dominican Republic and the festival's not gonna pay, but we're gonna send you because we think that's a value and will help draw viewers to the show. Mm-hmm. She has to have a camera person probably come with her, and that person has to have a flight. And they have to have a per diem for their food while they're here, and they have to have a hotel paid for. And suddenly, KJ is going, oh crap,
how much money do I have left?
$5,000, but that's not enough, like, you know, so.
Yeah, so that happens too. So budget is important in all avenues of what we do. Yeah.
Well, on the matter of journalism, Ms. Mathews, I want to know about your day by day as an entertainment journalist. How do you prepare for that?
So, I'm going to give you two answers to that. So I'm going to step back a little bit and talk about when I was working exclusively for CNN, nobody else, just CNN alone. And that was more of a staff job. My days would normally start with going out to cover like an interview or a movie junket. I usually started outside of the office because I was in Hollywood. So I'd come in, make sure I got my interview set up, go out to interview stars of a movie, or go to a set where they were doing a music video, or I'd maybe do a one-on-one with the filmmaker and we would do an interview. Once I do that, because I'm television and we shot that as video, I usually bring that back to the office, kind of look over the video, decide kind of how I want the story to be, whether it's going to air on primetime television or early in the morning, and really start putting it together, doing the behind the scenes stuff, which is unglamorous stuff, which is logging my tape, deciding what sound bites of the interview I want to use, who do I want to use as an editor, and then kind of spending the next couple hours putting it together. And surprise, surprise, people don't realize this, but when you see a 1 minute or a 2 minute story, it seems short and like, oh, it didn't take that long. Let me tell you, for every 2 minute story you see on the news that involves an entertainment story, it took hours to put that together. Hours, like a 2 minute piece that would air. Let's just say I did an interview like a Spike Lee or something, and he invites me to his house. We sit down, we talk, we interview him, and he talks about his latest movie coming out. And I say, that's great. So I've got clips of his latest movie. I've got this sit-down interview with him. I take that back to the office and put all that together, and it airs, and it's only 2 minutes, but it takes me like 5 hours. Because there is the logging of the tape and seeing what I want to use out of all that. And then there is the writing part of it. And then people have to look it over. When you're working for television, you don't just put something on the air. Lawyers and producers, they all have to look it over to make sure it's fair, to make sure you're accurate, to make sure you've got all the essential parts. And that could take a long time. And then at the very end, it goes to the editor who puts all the tape and stuff together, and then it plays. So it's a long process to draw that out to put it out. And that's how it was when I was at CNN. But now that I work for, I contribute to a lot of different outlets, it's very different because I don't have to do so much of the package putting together. I do a lot more of the commentary and the interviewing part. So it's a little bit different. I kind of get up and decide what they want me to do for the day. Because I work for so many outlets, a lot of them don't only want me to focus on film. So one day I could be talking about the Cannes Film Festival or the Venice Film Festival and what are the great movies that are coming out of those festivals. And the next day I could be talking about box office figures. Or the next day I could be talking about the Grammy Awards, which deal with music. Or I could be talking about some television show got canceled, or sitting down with somebody that's going through their last season. Or I could also be doing breaking news. You know, somebody that we love passes away in the entertainment industry, and I'm kind of doing a profile on them. So it goes back and forth between film and television and music, and that's kind of what I do now for all of those outlets. So I may do a live report for BBC in the morning, and then maybe midday I might do something for the German network called DW English, and then later I might do something on radio for like Sky TV. They have a radio podcast, so they may call me in and do something like that. So I kind of bounce back and forth between outlets all day long now, instead of one outlet.
And it's interesting because you talked about like the staff position as a full-time staff person and freelancing.
Right, with different outlets. So
Yeah.
it's a totally different, totally different system. And of course, one's international and one was national for me. But yeah, it's just different. And also the focus is different because I was so myopic and small with CNN. It was like only in America. It was all about America, America, America. And now it's like I love working for the international outlets because it's like, it's not just America. It's like, well, what is America doing? You know, we want it to be able to focus on like, what does our audience care about? If they're in the UK, how does this affect their audience? If they're in Australia and I do the ABC network there, they want to know should Australians care? You know, so I have to cater now to a more global audience and people who are not living in the US and find the common denominator of why they should care about my story when they don't live in Hollywood.
But for careers in journalism and news and entertainment, that is a really important distinction that you all probably want to make pretty early on, is figuring out whether you like having a full-time job at one place or whether you like being a freelancer. Because there are a lot of people in our business.
Yeah, and I think that to be honest with you, I was going to say that, Larry, I think everybody goes through that. Like, everybody goes through in the beginning, I think you get your best experience being on staff. I would encourage everybody to get the full-time job, do that. I don't know anybody in this business that's doing like freelance or contributing that has never done a staff position or a full-time. Everybody does that. And some people do back and forth. A friend of mine, Kelly, she's done both. She's done the major kind of outlets, and then she was kind of on her own, and then she went back to working for like Disney. So you can bounce back and forth at different points, and sometimes it's just a matter of what's best for you. I know for me with freelance, it was great because I had a relative that was sick for a little bit, and it allowed me to help take care of her, to be able to set those flexible hours and have more time where I didn't have to come in every day and be in a job that was kind of more like 9 to 5. So as you progress and you decide what you like, sometimes maybe doing the staff thing is for you. You just have to kind of decide what's best for you. But if you can do the staff in the beginning, definitely do it because you'll get a lot more experience before you branch out on your own.
We have one last
Mr.
question.
Laboe, I can't stop thinking about the fact that you graduated at 16 years old. Can you please tell us more? How did you achieve it? How hard was it? And how did it impact your career?
You want the truth? So you don't get mad at me. I'm going to tell them the truth. I told my mom at 15, I said, Mom, I understand that I have 5 other siblings. I understand there's 6 of us. I understand that you can't quit your job and you can't move with me to New York. But I'm moving to New York. So next year, I'm 15, I'm going to turn 16. And legally, at that age, I can leave home and you cannot stop me. I'm allowed. The law says I can do it. So you have 2 options. You can sign this paperwork for me to do this homeschooling program so I can finish high school now before 11th grade, or I'm going to quit school. Pick one, okay? So you have 2 options. I know. I knew what I wanted. And then I told her, I said I was saving money, and I said, now here's step 2. Now that we did the homeschooling and that's taken care of, I'm really moving still. Like I wasn't kidding. I'm moving to New York. Oh, he's not moving. I'm moving to New York. So either I'm going to take the money I saved and I'm going to move in with a stranger from the internet, and probably they're going to murder me. Or you can come with me. TV. You can come with me. No, but this was my tool to get her to actually take it seriously. I said, or you can come with me to New York, and you can sign a lease, because they're not going to let me sign a lease. I'm 16, and I'll pay. Or I'm going to just move with a stranger, and they're going to murder me. So that's how I got her to take the trip to New York to actually look at apartments. And then it took like 2 months. One called back, and they said, we're going to give you an apartment, but you have to be here in 2 days. And I called my older sister, who didn't live in the house anymore. She was married. And I said, I need your help. I need you to rent a truck, because I know if mom knows that it's happening, that I'm moving, she's gonna freak out. Just get the truck here, and I'm gonna take my things and put it in the truck. And I did, and then I got everything out of my room and put it in the truck my sister rented. And I said, Mom, we have to leave tonight. She's like, what? I'm like, we're driving to New York in this truck. She's like, what? And she comes outside, and there's a truck, and all my stuff's already in it. So did that answer your question? That's how I did it. She knew I knew. She knew. She couldn't deny that I loved that interest, that area of interest. And I had been saying since I was 9, I'm moving to New York or LA. I'm moving to New York or LA. So I think part of her knew from the way that I was that I wasn't going to take no for an answer. But I knew what I wanted to do. And I'm so glad that I did it, because I was way ahead of everybody else that later moved after college at 22 or 23 years old. And I learned so much doing it. Like, I learned way more going that route and finishing high school. Even socially, I learned more than I would have learned in my last 2 years at my regular school. But also, you have to understand, where I came from in Michigan was a very small-minded, closed-minded place to live. It wasn't probably as open as being in a bigger city like this, or being in Los Angeles, or being in New York, or being in Chicago, or being in Miami, you know?
There's no space for progress.
Yeah, most of the people from there, I use a phrase, stump. What is a stump? A stump is a tree that's it's done growing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like...
I kind of see what you're saying. Even though I grew up in Los Angeles, when I moved to Alabama and Kentucky to start my news career, I was in very, very small cities, and a lot of those places didn't have people that looked like me. So it was tough coming in, not having a lot of experience, trying to get that experience so I can bump back up to the big market, and trying to get that experience around people who weren't the most welcoming people to people like me. So it was challenging, because there definitely is what I call a groupthink mentality of people, sometimes in those smaller places, especially in the States, like people that look like them and act like them and believe in the same things they believe in. And if you don't, it can sometimes be hard to penetrate. But I'm sure that's all over the world. There are places where they're smaller, and when outsiders come in, they may not be very open. I'm sure you guys have all.
But it's also the lack of curiosity that was there.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. So many people would say things even now from where I'm from, I'm going to Guadalajara for Thanksgiving. Guadalajara? Why are you going to Guadalajara? What's there? You're going to get shot. Things like that.
They have stereotypes, for sure.
Why do you need to travel outside of the United States?
It's silly. It happens. When I was when I left CNN, I was thinking about applying for a job with the Al Jazeera network, which is based in the Middle East. And I remember when I mentioned the word Al Jazeera, people looked like I had 3 eyeballs. They what? Why would, what? You want to go live in the Middle East? So that curiosity he's talking about, you have to have it. You have to want to learn from other people, see how other people live, and experience them, and just understand that you live in your world and you have things that you do and you're used to doing, you're comfortable with, but there's so many different perspectives and worlds out there of people around the world that don't do things the way you do, you know, and see things in a different light and just be open to that.
And it's totally okay to be true to who you are and do all the things you love and not adapt to what anybody else is doing just because they're doing it. But I think to know what else is out there and to be open to the idea of evolution or another point of view. Like for me, you know, with point of view, if somebody says, oh, like they have this opinion, instead of getting angry and being like, oh, that's not right, you shouldn't think that way. I was like, why are you thinking that way? Like, give me an example. Let's talk about it, you know? As opposed to just being like, you're a Republican in the United States, I hate you, stay away from me,
right?
You know? So it transcends, obviously, you know, like where you're from. It can be about politics, it can be about, you know, social things, it can be about socioeconomic things, like means, what you have access to, what you don't have access to. So anyway, we're getting off topic, but.
Right, but you guys get the point.
Thank you so much for your time. We really enjoyed having you here, and thanks for answering all our questions. It's really been
Round of applause for those two.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that that's always what we encourage the students to actually think out of the box and make decisions according to what they're passionate about and what they think and they believe in. But the most important thing I think is that you actually pursue your dreams, but you make the effort to actually get where you wanted to get. So that's a learning experience that I'm sure that they will take a lot out of it. So thank you, both of you, so very much for being here. We really appreciate your effort to come to Santiago and to be here with us. And for you guys, let's give them another round of applause.
Yeah, I was just going to say passion, perseverance, and persistence. That's what you need. You already have the talent. Those three things, remember, and you will find your path and really excel at what you choose to do.
Yeah. And I would say you guys are really lucky. Like when I was in high school, we didn't have this kind of stuff. I mean, this is what you guys are organizing at the school. It's really, I understand you guys do this like pretty often with different people. This is like something generally you get more once you're like in college. And so I think like, you know, taking advantage of everything the school has to offer. I was teaching at a university, film, in San Francisco. It was a very prestigious university, San Francisco Art Institute. But a lot of the students, they came from families with a lot of money. So they didn't really care so much about the learning and what was being offered to them, all the opportunities. And then they graduated, and well, they had money and they didn't have to really earn a living. They kind of felt lost in their life, like, oh, what am I doing? Like, I'm just kind of around. So the fact that you guys have these opportunities, not just with us, with everybody who's coming in, and the work that you guys are doing as a staff for the students, I would like to, you know, say I appreciate the work that you guys are doing as a faculty. And you guys should definitely
take advantage of that.
Give them a round of applause.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you. And yes, we do. Every time we have the opportunity to expose our students to what is out there and they need to look forward for their future. So that's what we want. Okay, so thank you guys for being a nice audience. Okay, I'll leave that with you.